Hello and welcome back to the Chattercade podcast, where I discuss media in the forms of reviews. I'm your host, Ranking Thomas Hughes, and today I am returning back to the Maneater series after taking that week off to cover basically the last few seasons of Castle, and so I'm returning today to cover the fourth entry in the series, Maneater, which was released in 2007, and focuses on a small town that has to deal with a Bengal tiger that has accidentally been released into the forest that surrounds this town. Obviously, it focuses on a sheriff, a hunter, and a young boy that are forced to deal with this tiger that is slowly picking off members of their local community. And obviously, before I actually get into this, I will point out that I will probably make a lot of references to the movie Jaws because there is. Let's just say this movie is basically Jaws, but on land. There's a lot of characters and plot points which are very clearly meant to be paying homage, slash just obviously taking inspiration from obviously in Jaws. I mean, you got the sheriff character actually trying to do his job. Obviously, while he's dealing with a mayor who is constantly trying to stop him from doing his job because obviously there's a big event happening in town. Obviously, yes, it's no 4th of July like in Jaws, but there's this big parade going on, and the sheriff going around screaming, "Tiger, Tiger," is going to fuck up a lot of things for them. Obviously, then you've also got the hunter being roped in, who obviously is very eccentric. Obviously, in this one, he's obviously a very British hunter who basically wants to help take down this tiger. So the only real difference really compared to Jaws is this plot with the boy who has some sort of psychic connection to the tiger, which is something that's not fully explored in this movie, which I'll obviously, in my notes, I've jotted it down. Obviously, fourth time round, obviously I point out each time that each of these movies stars a big actor, or at least someone who's more recognisable. The only instance where it's not was the second one, which obviously its big star technically didn't get into the big stardom until years after the movie came out. But I say so far we've had F. Murray Abraham and we've had Lance Henrik. Fourth time now for this fourth one we have Gary Busey, who's playing the sheriff in the town. Obviously he's the one who has to deal with trying to stop this tiger from killing people. Obviously, I've made a few notes, obviously, in terms of some of the other actors. There's only really 3 that, when I was looking for the credits, that there's really anything that I actually know of. And there's only one, really, where I could say I do recognise him straight away. And as obviously, my original notes, I only wrote down 2 of the characters. But as the movie got on and this other character came into a very, very brief moment, I was like, oh, I recognise him from something. What do I recognise him from? And I quickly found out. So the actor who's playing the hunter in this is an actor by the name Ian D. Clarke. I wrote his name down for one credit only that I recognise. Obviously, I don't really remember his character in it because I haven't really played the game for a long time. But obviously, I'll hopefully within the next few months be replaying it. And he was obviously in Assassin's Creed Syndicate. And the reason I wrote this down, not just because obviously it's just me referencing the fact that it's a game I'm going to be playing again soon on the channel, it's more the fact that this is the 4th time now, 4th movie in a row where someone in it has appeared in the Assassin's Creed saga. First one I had Matt Ryan. Second one, the actors in the movie obviously appeared in Unity and Syndicate as obviously the voice of the woman trying to guide you through the Animus and trying to help you avoid Abstergo. The third one, I was like, I think this is the only one that didn't have one. But then I looked back into it, and the actress who obviously was in Baldur's Gate 3 lent her voice to the tutorials of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, so still counts. And then obviously this guy was in Syndicate, so that's like 4 out of 4 now. There's someone from Assassin's Creed, which is pretty cool. Obviously the other actors I wrote down is obviously the one who plays the young boy, an actor by the name Ty Wood, who appeared in 16 episodes of the Netflix revival of Sabrina Teenage Witch, obviously simply titled The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. He appeared in that. I only ever watched some of the first season, I think, so I don't really know too much about people in it. Hayden's probably the best to ask regards to that. And then the last one, which is an actor who came into later on, was playing a soldier. He goes, obviously his name's Alex Punovic, I don't know how you pronounce that actually. He obviously has appeared in quite a few credits. Him, like Gary Busey, is probably the only one that I actually recognise via face. Less of name with this one. Obviously, Gary Busey I recognise by his name because it's fucking Gary Busey. But obviously with him, it's more the case of his credits I recognise him from, and I say his face. And obviously, the one particular that comes to mind is Hawkeye, because he played one of the members of the Tracksuit Mafia that was in that. He's also appeared in like the Planet of the Apes movies, Van Helsing, that's a TV adaptation which I didn't really watch. I think Hayden said he was in Zombie, so he's got a lot more credits than most of these. So he's the only one other than Gary Busey that I really recognised, and as they, he's the only one that I recognised while watching, going, oh, I recognise his face from somewhere. Another thing I've obviously wrote down in my notes here is the director, Gary Yates. He obviously stuck around actually with this franchise in a few movies' time. He did Eye of the Beast, which is the octopus one. I think it was the octopus, it was squid. It was octopus, I'm pretty certain. Anyway, he did that one. But then obviously one thing I noted down from, what year was it? 2011 to 2022, so a good 11 years. He seemed to get completely trapped in the TV universe. Specifically the Hallmark universe, because I've jotted down at least 18 credits on IMDb for Hallmark movies, i.e. these romance ones, particularly like the Christmas themed ones. He did a fuck ton then. I say at least 18. There's a couple more on there, but they don't say Hallmark on the posters on IMDb, so I'm not going to fully count them. But he has done a couple of extra ones that possibly could be, or at least still are, these crappy ass, cheap as fuck to make, cheesy as hell, straight to TV Christmas movies, which I can't fucking stand, mainly because my mum always seems to watch these crap ones at the point of when it's not suitable to watch Christmas movies, i.e. As soon as the channel comes on Sky, the 24/7 Christmas channel bullshit, which I swear is usually on Sky middle of the year. And she always seems to watch these crap ones, and over the years, every time I walk in, I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm just walk straight back out. So yeah, obviously, I just find it funny that he seems to get trapped in this universe of making straight to TV movies. He hasn't done anything though since 2022. It was the last film he actually made, so you know. But yeah, obviously, maybe for me, it's I actually get into the movie rather than the actors and director. I say it's very similar to Jaws in the sense of it's a town dealing with an apex predator that's wandered into their territory. Obviously, Jaws being a shark that's swum into the ocean, but obviously the shoreline that's surrounding this island. This time around, it's obviously a tiger that is, to be fair, unlike the shark, which is obviously it's naturally found its way into this ecosystem. This time around, it's more the case of it's an accidental truck crash that has brought this tiger into this obviously territory, because obviously the film starts with a truck crashing, avoiding the obviously young boy character, and obviously in the process the tiger gets out and goes on a killing spree. So obviously, I say it's got a lot of the Jaws vibes to it, but it just doesn't hit as home. So obviously, one of the things I noted, I say, very similar to Jaws, I say the mayor character being the one that's trying to stop them from kind of bringing full public attention to it. But the difference here is compared to Jaws, where it's more about over a while, then obviously it's more about the newspapers and the radio getting involved with obviously the situation. And obviously, eventually the news did get involved, but that was more of a case of when they deemed the shark dead. Obviously, in this one's case, it's more the case of straight away, this sheriff ignores the mayor, doesn't actually even go to this mayor, he just goes straight in and goes, look, I need basically the news here, I need basically every sort of reporter you can find, bring them in, we're going viral with this, we're going statewide, being there's a dangerous tiger on the loose. I need to let people know that you basically don't go into these woods, stay at the woods. If you need to go outside to do work, i.e., I think this one he points out, like if you're like in farming and stuff like that, if you need to do anything like that, make sure you're in pairs. So I like that approach actually with this one. I like the fact that the sheriff really doesn't give a shit about the mayor's opinion straight away. He doesn't even bother going to him. And obviously, very quickly, even when the mayor kind of bites down on him, like, you don't need to go nationwide, you don't need to be doing this and that, he still doesn't back down from the situation. Whereas, obviously, Roy Scheider's character in Jaws, obviously Cheap Brody, obviously, he's in the same boat early on, trying to make sure everyone's safe. But then when the mayor kind of bites down on him, he still investigates, but he takes this bit of a step back. He doesn't go, I'm not doing what you're saying, I'm doing this my way. He's still trying to do it his way, but subtly, while also still trying to be in the good books of the mayor and all these other people. So I like the difference there, at least. It's not just a straight-up carbon copy of Jaws. There is still, obviously, some elements that are new, that aren't, obviously, explored in the movie of Jaws. So I will give credit there. Obviously, it still has the same effect of something traumatic has to happen to the mayor for him to finally realise that this creature isn't worth the risk. Yeah, it's bringing in all these people, it's bringing in all this money, but at the end of the day, it's dangerous, it needs to be dealt with. So it still has elements of Jaws there, but at the same time, it still explores it in a different route up until that point compared to, as I say, how Jaws explored it. Obviously, one thing I noted, which is one of the biggest killers of this movie, is the movie's kills. So, one thing, obviously, I was talking to Hayden before recording this. Obviously, I was like, when you've got a movie where you can't fully show your antagonist, i.e. with Jaws, they couldn't show the shark fully because of issues with the, obviously, mechanical shark they had, so they couldn't actually do a lot of what they needed to do. But when they actually were able to use it, they made it memorable enough that you got away with out having this, basically, your centerfold of your movie being in the film 100% of the time, i.e. The opening kill. Memorable because the music, how tense it is, how vicious it looks when she's getting dragged in the water. The Kitchener boy death obviously has this, I say, incredible build up, and then the zoom in, obviously, of Brody's face as his kids being like bled to death by this shark. Obviously, the guy in the boat when he gets killed. Obviously, when it takes him from the side, it's fucking scary as fuck. I say the whole last act, incredible. And then even when it's not present, i.e., obviously it's not present in the sense of killing, i.e. the Ben Gardner scene and the two guys that are using it on the docks trying to catch it with a roast. Those scenes are so intense to watch because of the music, the build-up. They do so well with the little they have, which this movie doesn't. Obviously, it goes the route of an actual practical tiger, so I will give credit, just like I did with Grizzly Rage. They have an actual tiger for this movie. This one is actually, out of the four I've done so far, this is the only one that does not have any CGI whatsoever, or at least bad CGI whatsoever that you can tell. Grizzly Rage almost didn't, apart from I think it's mainly the explosion scene at the end when you see the fire behind the bow. I think, if I remember correctly, that there's a bit of CGI there and it does look a bit dicey. But this one doesn't whatsoever. It fully focused on being a practical tiger, and that's it. Obviously, the only problem is that it's the kills, the build-up to the kills, everything around these kills is just not there. It's more of the aftermath they go with this one. So you see the severed limbs of the victims. You see the person on the floor bleeding, or obviously bled out. That's all you really get to see in this movie. You only get to see an actual tiger attack. Okay, to an extent, the first one, you get to see the tiger pounce and it's cut away. And I feel like, okay, you can allow one of those, that's fine. You see another one which is via photographs. So obviously, because they're bringing all these reporters in, obviously they're trying to get the biggest scoop of the lifetime. Obviously, he's taking pictures as it's running towards him, and the last shot obviously is the tiger pretty much right in front of him, i.e. right before he gets killed. Again, you see the aftermath, and I will give credit to that scene, actually, because I liked that. I like that's the way that they obviously realised this, fully realised there's this tiger out here. Because yes, they've been told, they've seen like these, obviously the carnage, a couple of bodies it's already dropped, but they've not actually seen it themselves. They've just been told. And I like this scene for the fact it's them finally going, yeah, we have a tiger problem out here. This needs to be dealt with. I like that. So I will give credit there. And then obviously during the final act, you do get to see a tiger versus a person when the tiger obviously jumps a character and basically mauls them to death. So that's the only times really you get to see a tiger properly attack. All the rest are, as I say, it's either the aftermath, so you just see the bodies, or they do an interesting thing, which at the same time is frustrating, which is it does it via flashbacks. So there's two death sequences, both to do with the military, where obviously there's a soldier died, because obviously this film for some reason brings in the military to deal with this tiger. I found that very stupid. I felt like they would have gone a different route rather than go, yeah, it's called the military in here. Let's get the military to kill this tiger. Surely the guy that would have brought in experts and actual hunters, not just soldiers. But that's, I just found that quite stupid. But as I say, there's two death scenes in there where obviously you see the aftermath of someone dead and you're trying to figure out what's going on. Then this hunter character comes in and obviously he gives an explanation of how he pictures what's happened, how he pictures how the tiger stalked, how it took them down. And it obviously all that is via flashback you get to see. But again, with that, the two deaths really are just people getting pulled off screen, and maybe you see like the legs being dragged in the dirt, but you don't actually ever see the tiger dragging them. And I was just like, I don't mind the idea of it's like a couple of, again, I don't mind the idea of a couple of deaths being obviously off screen, but this movie is entirely off screen deaths. I say I can get away with the first kill, the jump and cut away, that's fine. You can get at least one of them in. And I feel like the two flashbacks are fine enough for deaths if you fucking showed something. Like, I understand possibly why they couldn't fully utilize the tiger, because obviously, again, low budget movie, 2007, safety reasons. I'm guessing again they couldn't fully go and say, here we go, here's a tiger attacking someone. I know a couple of years later than this, there's obviously that movie Burning Bright, and that actually also utilizes a real tiger. But I can't remember too much about that. I didn't really enjoy that one either. I enjoyed it more than this, obviously, because there's a lot more intensity of what's going on. It's just basically the same sort of idea what Crawl eventually used with alligators instead of, obviously, a tiger. But obviously, I swear in that one, obviously, there's a bit more. But again, there's not many people in that one, so they can get away with just going for the more tense sequences. Whereas this, obviously, it's got people, it's dropping bodies, but it's not doing much with those bodies dropping. It's just going, here's the aftermath. I will give credit for the aftermaths. Obviously, the practical effects that you do use on some of the bodies are really good. For, again, low budget movie, straight to TV sci-fi movie specifically, some of the bodies are really good. I mean, the truck driver, obviously, you're like, okay, is this guy dead or not? Spoiler alert, he is. Obviously, you don't get to see him till a little bit into it when they find the truck. And when they see the body, like its head is like half it's missing. And to be fair, out loud, I went, oh shit. Like, that's the only time really this movie made me react. So I was like, okay, that's actually fucking really good practical effects there on this dead body. And so there's a couple of like limbs you get to see, and I was like, okay, that's not bad really. They're pretty okay. It's just to say, it's just the lack of on-screen kills is another death in the, obviously, another way this movie gets buried. It's a problem that this whole series has had really so far. Most of your kills are pretty much off screen. I think so far the exceptions are, sorry if my phone vibrated, then I'll turn it. I forgot my phone was not on silent, so if you heard that, I apologize. The only exceptions to like deaths that aren't just people getting dragged away or just a quick cut away. Obviously, a guy gets shot in this. One exception. Obviously, the final mauling sequence. Okay, another exception. Obviously, F. Murray Abraham's character in Blood Monkey obviously gets impaled, so obviously you do get to see a lot of that. and obviously, Rage, most of it is off screen or someone slowly bleeds out afterwards. And in the spider's web, obviously there's a gunshot scene, and obviously the people when they'll see the couple of the spiders attack. So only a couple really of like fully on-screen deaths within this franchise, and this one just goes, okay, what if there's just none? And I say that's a real fucking bummer for me with this one. It's got a good idea because I say it's replicating Jaws, but what if it's on land? Which I say many films have done in the past. I mean, Grizzly, I can't think off the top of my head. I mean, to an extent, Lake Placid. Obviously, it takes the same ideas and goes, okay, let's craft it into a different film, different creature. And it's a cheap method of doing it, and it's interesting as well with this one because this one's also based on a novel similar to Jaws. This one's based on a novel called. I did write it down here somewhere. Where the fuck did I write down my notes? Bear with me just 1 second while I try and find it. I wrote it, I think, quite far into my notes actually, and I can't find it. I can't remember the name of the book because obviously it's. I can understand why they probably changed to Maneater because it would have sounded weird as a movie title. I really can't fucking find where I wrote this in my notes. Fuck. Oh, there we go. Shikar, by a writer called Jack Warner. So I say it's not going to escape the trying to copy Jaws allegations of the fact it's copying a novel. So apparently the novel's a lot better, but I've never read it, never even heard of it before I actually did a bit of research into this film. So, but yeah, it's just. So it's what I've been pointing out consistent with this franchise so far. The groundwork is there for what could be at least a mid-card movie. This one, I think it stands out more than the first two entries because I liked them how you following this town trying to deal with this tiger, and they're slowly going away from the isolationness of how the franchise started because the first two movies were more isolated from society. Obviously, the last one had them isolated to an extent, but also had a whole thing where they went into the town to try and get help. So I like with this one, it's completely, there's no isolation whatsoever, unless you're like stumbling through these woods. But even then, a lot of these characters are very quickly getting to a road, getting quickly to a town. So it's the case of, even though there's moments where obviously they're away from a civilization, the whole movie itself is fully following this town, dealing with it. And so I like the cinematography. The cinematography is pretty good in this one, despite the fact that it's obviously they're only using a very small location for filming. This, for me, obviously, it utilized it to the best of its ability. Like, it utilized a lot of, obviously, its main cast members to the best of their abilities. Obviously, they could have given them a bit more to work with in terms of, obviously, the script, but they get by enough. As I say, it's always going to be that lack of kills. It's that everything being off screen as well. I think that's the worst thing about this one. That's obviously going to kill it. But as I say, I feel like the plot enough for me does push it above the first two, mainly because, as I say, you're not following like a bunch of teens or a bunch of young adults dealing with this threat and kind of just whining and whinging. It's a bunch of, well, grown-ups. They're fully trying to tackle this threat. They're obviously the only real kids in this, or younger characters at least, are obviously the young boy with the quote-unquote psychic connection, which they quickly brush under the rug, and obviously his friend. That's it. Everyone else is an adult trying to tackle this threat. So I feel like that makes it stand out a little bit more than two of the obviously four movies so far, but it doesn't make it stand out enough compared to In the Spider's Web. But say it could have. I've written my notes later, obviously, which I'll get into in a bit. Improvements, which obviously would have improved it over into the Spider's Web. In the Spider's Web. Stop calling it into. I don't know why I keep doing that. There are a few improvements that could have, as they pushed it to that mid card enough. Heck, the improvements I'm going to bring up, if they did it right, at least, if obviously specifically one of them's aimed at the fucking subplot in this, if they did that right enough, it could have pushed it beyond the mid-cardness at least to maybe like a 6, but just because of obviously they don't fully go into making this, obviously these two plots the best, obviously these two obviously things like great, it stops it from going anywhere higher than I actually have put it. What else have I wrote down here? Yep, done that. Yep, done that. Obviously, another thing I will note, obviously, similar to Grizzly Rage, there is a scene where it's very clearly someone with a paw swiping at characters rather than the actual tiger. Because obviously in Grizzly Rage, it's when the bear's attacking the car. Obviously, when it's jumping on the top of the car, you can very clearly tell it's a person slamming their hands in like fake bear paws onto the car. In this one, funny enough, it's also when there's a car involved. It's when obviously two characters are hiding under a car. Gary Busey and the kid are hiding away from this tiger. The tiger's going under. There's a mixture of shots of obviously seeing the tiger obviously going at them, and then there's a shots obviously of them trying to like dodge this tiger, trying to strike them. But it's very clearly just like a person's hand is swiping. Obviously, clearly just like got this fake paw / sleeve on that makes it look like the tiger. So obviously there is some level of, okay, I could tell that's fake in this. But as I said, just the lack of CGI for me does give me a lot of positives. It's just to say the only problem was that fucking didn't utilize the practicalness of it to the best they could have easily done. But as I say, I'm guessing safety reasons meant it kind of kills it. Similar to Grizzly Rage, it kills the use of practical. Though the credit's there for them going the route, it also at the same time probably does kill the movie a lot. What else here? Obviously, the acting isn't atrocious in this one. I think the acting's fine enough. So Gary Busey is okay enough to watch. The actor who plays the hunter, he's probably like the best character really in this movie. And even as I say all the other characters, even the kid character, he's not super annoying, and that's always a bonus. So it's one of those ones where the acting's okay. It's just if they had more material to work with, it probably would have been better. And then obviously on the final act of the film, obviously I'll give credit and also criticism at the same time. So the credit is the tiger's actually involved, so you actually get to see the tiger physically maul someone, even if it's probably more likely just playing with this obviously stunt person instead of obviously actually attacking, and they're just editing all these sound effects. So I'll look past that because at least we get like an attack scene. And then on top of that, there's a scene where Gary Busey's running, and obviously, yes, it's probably a stuntman running, but there's the tiger actually right behind them. You can tell they're actually in the same scene together, so credit there as well. My main criticism then is, obviously, before that, when the hunter is dealing with the tiger, bear in mind, the hunter is this character that, throughout this film, you're like, okay, this is the one that's probably going to deal with the tiger, or at least, like a Quint, is going to finally encounter it, maybe get killed by it like Quint does. And they literally have him in this dark room, tiger's possibly in there, takes a shot, and then it's pretty much the cut of him making an expression as the tiger's more than likely jumped him, and that's it, and it cuts away, and it's like, that's it, like, the hunter versus, the two hunters colliding is just one shot of a gun and then a quick cutaway. That's all you got. That is just bad in every way whatsoever. Like, they could have at least done something more with it, maybe drawn out the scene a bit more, and as they maybe even had it encounter the tiger a bit more before it kills him. But as I say, it's just, obviously they instead of going for that, they opted just for utilizing a shock reveal during the finale, obviously the final moments of this movie. And it's just like, so you've been building up this hunter versus but two hunters colliding just for just a quick cutaway and a reveal at the end. It's just, you could have done so much more with it. and you fail miserably. And obviously, then on top of that, they go for. I don't fully hate the final act when obviously it's Gary Busey and this kid trying to survive this tiger, and obviously it's swiping them. I don't mind that. Obviously, we get a decent, like, actual legitimate explosion in this scene, and it all leads to a more somber ending again. Obviously, it's similar to In the Spider's Web in the sense that the somber ending does have that negativeness of, well, this kid's probably going to be traumatized for life, but at least most of it is happy enough. Whereas, obviously, one of the criticisms I made with Grizzly Rage was it was just a carbon copy of the ending of Blood Monkey. At least to an extent, this actually isn't just a carbon copy of the more somber In the Spider's Web ending. So there is credit there, and I say, at least with this one, I don't know, actually, I was going to say, at least with this one, there's more deaths in it, but I say most of the deaths are just off-screen, and the characters that we don't really know much about, your main characters pretty much aren't on the tables for this one. So it's one of those ones where the ending has pros and cons, and but let's say the cons out, pros outweigh the cons. Probably not. I think the possibly balance. Actually, I wouldn't say the balance each other, because I said the pros are the tiger's actually there, and it's got an okay enough ending. The cons obviously are the two hunters colliding, is just dreadful. Them getting rid of the plot line with the boy, to fair, probably outweighs a lot of the pros, because as I say, they've been building this plot line with this kid. He's got a religious nutcase where it's very Carrie-like. They've been building it up, and then they're just rip it away like that. It's just gone, and it's just why were you even building this story up? You could have probably eradicated this kid from the plot line entirely, and just have the sheriff dealing with this tiger. You could have cut out this entire plot and replaced it with something else. Maybe even replaced it with just shots of the tiger walking to show it's still out there hunting, like just something like that. But as I say, it's just the groundwork is there. I mean, they're literally replicating Jaws, but on land. The groundwork is complete. Is out of all of them, it's fully there. It's the most it has ever been there. It's just them having this subplot which they completely eradicate. Them doing everything off screen and just implying it, and just being very not even mid really, just being very boring at times. Because I say the lack of kills does make it quite boring. And I say, going back to what I was on about with Jaws earlier, with the fact that even though they knew they didn't have the shark working, when they had it working, they made sure it was memorable. This could have gone that route. It could have gone, okay, let's make a couple of memorable kills, and there's litter the rest, maybe some aftermath kills. That's fine. That could have at least brought this up to a more acceptable standard, but they didn't do that. And so the only memorable scene really for me, I say, it's that one dead body when you see it's like head missing, and on top of that the tiger mauling the actual human at the end, seeing that the tiger actually attacks someone, and then the tiger chasing Gary Busey. Those are the only scenes that I'd say are memorable in this movie. As I said in my notes here, I think the best way to describe this movie is it's trying to replicate Jaws, but like a lot of movies before this and after this, it fails miserably to actually replicate it fully. And I said its biggest killer is the kills just being an implication rather than an actual visual sequence. So, what else have I got here? That's it, pretty much my notes. So, with that, I'm going to give Maneater 2007, because there is a couple of other films called Maneater. So the 2007 one specifically, I will give a 3 out of 10. It's just, as I say, the work's done for it, because it's literally replicating Jaws, so the work's done for it. And somehow it still managed to not make the landing a 10 out of 10, which is a shame, really, because, as I say, it does have it has a lot of interesting ideas. It just doesn't utilise them properly. As I say, the plot with the boy just goes nowhere, even though it's one plot I was like, okay, how's this going to play out? Like, I want to see how this plays out. This could be interesting if it's done right, and it's just not. And it's I don't know. I say it's out of the three that I've said, the groundwork's there to get it to at least mid card status. This one's the most that it easily could have been mid card status. Let's say it's literally replicating Jaws. What if Jaws wasn't about an oceanside town? What if Jaws wasn't about a shark? What if it's about this town in the middle of like a forest? What if instead of a shark, it was a tiger? It's there. It's just fails miserably to stick the landing because of the lack of anything really when it comes to its actual threat. And obviously one thing I did note in my own notes here, and obviously when I said obviously a film that basically doesn't have much, but there's enough with what it's got to make it watchable. I recently watched the movie The Long Road, Long Walk. Sorry, I might call it Long Road. I've written down my notes as well. I don't know why. The Long Walk, obviously the Stephen King adaptation, which recently came out. I watched that, and very simple movie. They walk until one's left standing. Simple enough, and you can go, okay, on paper that just kind of sounds pretty boring. But the movie generally wasn't. The movie is so good because it's intense. Between the talking sequences, obviously there's always the intenseness of who's going to die next, and then when they do die, it's quite graphic to watch. So that's fucking like draws you in, like whoa. And then even when it's between these moments when it's just people talking, having like a heart to heart, the acting is so fucking good in that movie that it outweighs these moments where there's not much going on, where it's just two people walking, or a bunch of people walking, sorry. It outweighs that. And there's a lot of heart to that movie that makes it shine, and generally makes it like one of my favourite movies I've seen this year. Despite the fact it's, on paper, it's just a bunch of people walking for money. And obviously, over time, they're either being shot or just generally just dying from exhaustion. That on paper sounds so fucking boring, but like the execution, obviously on the movie, and I've heard the novel as well, is just phenomenal. And as I say, this one's one where it's on paper, it doesn't sound boring. It's just Jaws, but it somehow is at times very boring. And another film it reminds me of actually is a film which I say full circle with Jaws because it's a film that stars Roy Scheider. A film I actually watched recently as well called Night Game, which I've never heard of before recently, and obviously it's about a serial killer targeting this same type of victim, blonde women. After every baseball game involving this obviously baseball player, and Roy Scheider, best part about the movie, does a really good job with what he's got. The vibe of the movie, good enough. It's just everything else about the movie is just shit. I generally was so tired watching it. I almost turned it off. I was bored out of my mind. It was just, there was a lot of stuff in the film that just didn't work for me, and that's kind of like this. Though I will say I did prefer this a little bit more, mainly because I like killer animal films, so that does kind of bring it higher than this other movie. So I don't know, it's one of those things to say 3 out of 10 is where it's at, and the things I've wrote in my notes for improvements, which I'll try and do each time. If there's stuff that I drastically looked at and go, okay, improve that, and you got a better movie on the hand, I will. Obviously, the ones I noted in here, obviously, is more scenes with a tiger, even if it's just a tiger walking through the woods, or just stalking someone. More of that would be interesting. Obviously, the deaths being on screen, even if it's a couple of them, be on screen, make them memorable. That's another point. And obviously, I'd say lastly, but I've got something else here. Lastly, obviously, don't build up this subplot and just rip it away like it's nothing. At least explore it more, and maybe even use that to play fully into the finale, which is obviously what this movie didn't do. It had the subplot there, and it kind of slowly plays. It brings the characters together for the finale, but then it's just gone for just this sort of very basic bitch of finale. And as I say, that really does kill it. And so you improve on them, And I really think this film could have easily been like a 6 out of 10. It literally loses 3 marks for obviously lacking of these moments. So the main reason I got a 3 is I like the cast. I thought the cast did a decent job. Specifically, as I said, Gary Busey and Ian D. Clarke. I thought they did a pretty decent job with what they had. I said the practicalness of the dead bodies was good, and the pro of no CGI. Those are sort of the reasons I consider this a 3, rather than anything lower. Because it was interesting enough. It's just the lack of satisfying conclusion, the lack of Tiger, and obviously the lack of actual visible deaths is what does fully hinder this movie from being a pretty decent time, or a pretty okay time. So with that, in terms of ratings, I will note I preferred it to Blood Monkey and Grizzly Rage, but I did not prefer it to In the Spider's Web. I thought they had a lot more intense moments, especially when they're in the cave and they're trying to rush through this cave. I don't know where they're going. The spiders all in this cave. I felt like those moments were a lot better. And on top of that, they had a fucking fly. They had a subplot in the movie involving the organ harvester, and they actually explored into it, and they actually fully made sure it had a satisfying enough conclusion. So for that, then I'd put Maneater into second place on my ranking, which obviously would then mean Grizzly Rage dropped it into third, and Blood Monkey drops into fourth. But of course, I say In the Spider's Web remains number 1 for now. Yeah, so obviously, if you've ever seen the 2007 film Maneater specifically, as I said, there's a couple of others when I typed in Maneater that came up. If you've ever seen that movie, put your thoughts in the comments below. And yeah, so obviously, you can check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, iTunes, etc. iTunes? That's Apple Podcast. Amazon Music, sorry, etc. And obviously, you can check out the podcast on YouTube, where you get to see all my other content. And I don't think I've done anything else with a killer tiger before, so I can't really point you to anything else like that off the top of my head. The only other killer tiger film that comes to mind is Burning Bright, which I've not covered yet. I might eventually. I kind of do want to rewatch it to give another opinion on it. So maybe that's something I'll look into down the line. Other than that, obviously, don't forget to check out the previous Maneater entries. All 3 are currently available to, as I stream on your podcasting platforms or watch the actual video on YouTube. And other than that, next time, obviously we'll be sticking with the Maneater series because we're moving on to Something Beneath, which is the first one that actually ventures out of the killer animal territory. I can't remember fully what the threat is of that one, but I remember it not being an actual animal. So that's something different. And hopefully that something different means better movie. Thumbs up, maybe? I don't know. I don't remember too much about Something Beneath. I think that's another one that I've only ever watched once. I feel like this one I may have seen twice, but I definitely have only ever watched Something Beneath once on TV, because it's a hard one to track down. But thankfully, it is on Prime Video, so I managed to buy it for like either $2 or $3.99. I was like, fuck it, that'll do. So I don't remember too much about it. Hopefully, that's a good sign. Hopefully, like In the Spider's Web, it's one I don't remember too much about, that it is better than some of these other ones. So yeah, four movies out of 4 now, and we're yet to get a 5-star movie in this franchise. So hopefully, soon enough, we can get one that's actually good. Or at least, let's say, mid-card. Anything better than mid-card, great. I just want a mid-card fucking movie in this franchise. Just please. Hopefully Something Beneath is that one. But yeah, obviously, other than that, I hope you enjoyed my talk on the 2007 film Maneater, and I will see you next time. Goodbye. If you like what you've seen, don't be afraid to throw us a little like and subscribe. as always, very appreciated over here. And, well, I'll see you on the next video.